Law enforcers of Reddit, have you ever come across a crime so stupid or ridiculous that you just let it slip? Not the US. To clarify for everyone asking, this was in South Africa in the early 90s. When I was in high school, the rugby team found out I had learned how to drive, but not yet received my license. They all knew I did not drink, so one of them had the genius idea of inviting me to parties as the designated driver. We lost a popular kid to a drunken accident a few months earlier, so it was actually a good idea. It was a great arrangement. Lots of parties, lots of girls, and all I had to do was get them home in one piece afterwards. It went great for a few weeks, until one night. The police had heard there was a big party on a farm outside of town and decided to set up a roadblock. So I come driving up to the flashing lights, car filled with 5 big drunk guys, including one passed out with his head out the window, and little scrawny me, barely able to look over the steering wheel, and the inside of the car smells like a brewery. The officer takes one look at the car, asks me to step out. Have you been drinking? No officer, I don't drink. Has me take a breathalyzer. 0. Looks at me. Can I see your driver's license? Sorry officer, I don't have one yet. I'm getting it next week. And I point back towards the car, but they have theirs. He looked at me, flipped his little book closed and said, just take them home. Next time I see you, you'd better have your license. In the US, we have a huge DD support movement. You would have probably gotten a medal or something where I'm from. Plus I live in a really rural area where, yeah, underage driving is kinda normal as long as you have a good reason. I overheard this one last night, as I was sitting near 2 Indiana cops at Panda Express. So this lady had a warrant for an unpaid ticket and missed court date. I bring her in, and it turns out that her address is wrong and she never got the court summons. The original ticket was for possession of a black base under 14 inches, and since she had missed the court summons, it was now on her record. So if she goes to apply for a job and they inevitably ask her, do you have any criminal history, she's obligated to say yes. Now imagine if the employer asks why. I caught a small fish. My ex-fiance was a cop for a redneck town where the people didn't have much money. He was called to the grocery store where a little girl about 9 was being detained in the manager's office for stealing a box of tampons. He said she had tears and snot everywhere and her pants had obvious blood stains all over the front. My ex then bought the box she was trying to steal along with 3 more boxes, some food, and milk. He then drove her home to a trailer that was falling apart. It wasn't so much the crime that was ridiculous but more the manager's reaction. I guess when my ex came in, the manager was just screaming at this terrified 9-year-old. I've been laughing at some of the other comments. This one made me really sad. I frequently ordered when I was in uniform, let impaired care or control slide. If I found someone sleeping in the backseat of their parked car after drinking, it demonstrated to me a decision to not drink and drive. I'd often take keys or drive someone home, but arresting them just seemed wrong. I was the lucky one once, not charged by a cop. In college, my friend had a massive house party. I woke up the next morning face down in a puddle of drool in the bed of my truck. Went inside and found out the cops had busted the party and everyone got underage tickets. Over 30 people, except for me. Not sure if they took pity on me or never saw me, but they had my truck boxed in with squad cars. The lines on my face from the rubs of my bed liner took 2 days to hoe away. They never saw you. When a cop sees a college-age kid totally passed out and not very responsive due to alcohol, you wake up in the hospital. Not a police officer, but I witnessed it happen. I got a phone call from a police officer using my buddy's phone. Apparently my buddy, a jackass, got so drunk he fell out of his car in the drive-thru line at Taco Cabana. The cop told me I had 15 minutes to get there and pick up my friend. I made it in time and the officer helped me throw my friend the bed of my truck. He told me to take my friend home and when he woke up tell him he was a freaking idiot. The police officer was a homicide detective in the major city in which we lived, and he said he had real crimes to solve and to stop wasting his time. I wanna believe you guys literally threw him into the truck bed. A long time ago, in a life far removed from my own, I had a nasty H addiction. I cleaned up my life and had been clean for 3 years. My friend had been learning to become a tattoo artist and asked me if I wanted one. To repay his kindness, I picked up a 30 pack and some tequila. After about 3 hours of him digging in with the gun and most of the beers and booze gone, we came up with the plan. We were going to go to the city and score some dope. Didn't take long and we accomplished just that. We found a nice quiet, dimly lit parking lot to pull in and get high. We break out the gear and started. He got his ready faster and got it done. I was out of practice and fumbled around for a bit. Just then someone knocked on the window. It's the cops. We roll down the window and they ask if we knew where we were. Before we can say anything, the cop said, "This is the freaking police station parking lot. Are you freaking retarded?" They took the dope and sent us on our way, and I now have 13 years clean thanks to that cop. That story was great in more ways than one. Thanks for sharing. There was this guy where I used to live who would walk around, smiling strangely and approach people trying to shake their hands. As soon as he got a hold of their hand, he would try to kiss them. A friend of mine naively accepted his handshake and literally bent over backward trying to avoid the kiss. A couple of churches in the area had this thing at the end of their services where everyone would shake hands, so this guy would show up to reap the harvest. The cops were called on him a few times, but to my knowledge they never arrested him, but just drove him far away from the area and dropped him off and made him walk all the way back. Reap the harvest. Very compelling image of the dude drooling over the thought of so many hands to kiss. Back in my drinking days, I was at a local bar getting hammered. As usual, I didn't think I was too far gone, but the bartender had a good eye and cut me off. I thanked him for watching out for me and shortly thereafter took my leave. I get about 24 steps out the door and it all hits me. I slump up against a wall. My sense of balance is just gone. I'm listing to the side like one of those drinking bird toys, just trying to stay on my feet. I slide down to the ground and decide, yeah, I'm not going anywhere for a while. While sitting out there in my embarrassment, trying to wait out the effects of the booze, it comes back up on me. Somehow in my drunken haze, I manage to elegantly puke to my left and my right, not getting a drop or a speck on me. I'm now positioned between two immaculate puddles of vomit, just biding my time before I can manage to walk back home. I don't know how much time had passed, but a cop shows up and sees me in my pathetic state. He starts asking me how I'm doing. Just fine, officer. Thanks, and asks me a couple routine medical questions to make sure I don't need to go to the hospital or anything. He asks me if I drove, and I say no, I just walked. I leave the car at home when I go drinking. He puts on a pair of latex gloves and tells me he's going to get me home. He cautiously helps me up, and my balance is marginally better, so I'm at least able to stand in place. He looks me up and down, looks at the puke, and asks, "Is that yours?" "Yep." "Sorry." He looks me up and down again and says, "Head." "Nice aim." He puts me in the back seat. First time I've been there without being in cuffs, and drives me home. I blacked out somewhere around getting in the car, so next thing I know I'm waking up face down on my living room floor. 3 hours later with my keys on the table and my front door securely shut and locked. GG cop was nowhere to be seen. So yeah, the drunken fool could have been taken in for pie or some such, but instead cop bro took me home and made sure I was alright. Pulled a guy over last night whose license expired. Not suspended, or revoked or denied, just expired. Dumbfounded me. How do you go 5 years with an expired license? Told him to get it renewed. The thoughtless lapse wasn't worth a trip to see the judge and the fines. Sent him on his way. The thoughtless lapse wasn't worth a trip to see the judge and the fines. Sent him on his way. That's how he got away with it for 5 years equals P. Prosecutor here. I came across one such domestic violence case during intake. The facts: husband and wife arguing. Husband grabs wife's keys and throws them in the yard. Husband is charged by beat cop with criminal tampering, and technically, husband was guilty under the law. I've never written a faster motion to dismiss. My grandpa was a police officer in Houston in the 60s and 70s. He told me of this time where a lady called to report some dynamite she found in her own garage. When he arrived on the scene, he realized that said dynamite was actually a candle. So being real careful, he took a lighter from his pocket and lit it to prove it wasn't dangerous. The lady who called bolted from the house running from a lit candle. Win-win situation right there. If it's a candle then she looks a bit silly and everything is good. If it's dynamite then at least he won't have to feel stupid for very long. I was actually observing the following exchange in court once. A lady received a ticket for a seat cushion violation. So, in my state, FL, if you are unusually short for whatever reason you get a restriction on your license that says you need a booster seat to drive. Makes logical sense. Here's how the exchange went. So miss, whatever you're here for, a seat cushion violation. Wait, is that even a thing? Lengthy exchange with the state attorney followed. They put white noise and so we couldn't hear it, but the judge was laughing her butt off the whole time. Well, okay, that's a new one. How tall are you? 5'2", Your Honor. So you're not that short really. Do you have a restriction on your license? No, Your Honor. The officer said I looked really short and needed it. Wait, what? Case dismissed. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. My British spelling is apparently blowing people's minds. I've lived in Florida for 14 years but was born in England. I still spell the English way is all. I live in Florida and my wife is 5 feet 1 inches. I'm sharing that with her. As a young patrolman in the Air Force Security Police, got a call to an office referencing possible sabotage or theft of classified material. I remember thinking how this could be a huge case. I was thinking ahead about all the questions to ask and who would have to get called in. I get to the office, get all the basic identifying information from the complainant victim. I asked her what made her think there was sabotage going on and she told me that the last couple days she's been coming at her work and ate on her 2.5 inches discs. Yes, I'm old enough for those. Has been erased. So, I ask where she stores her disc. She turns to her whiteboard, and crap you not, pulls her disc out from under a magnet. I actually stood there, blank-faced in awe as this woman who developed complex systems for the military held this disc out to me. All I could say was, "Mom, do you know what happens to a magnetic storage device when you expose it to a magnetic field generated by, say, a magnet? Welcome to my life. Welcome to technical support. This is typical customer behavior, and then they expect you to fix it. Headache." I was working the metal detector at our court. I tell people to remove anything metal from their pockets and place it on the table before walking through. This one guy pulls out his plastic bag of weed and lays it out in front of me. I did a triple take to make sure it was what I thought it was. I told him that marijuana is not metallic and that he should keep that in his pocket next time. Since he already has some legal issue pending in court, I decided not to pile anything else on him. I confiscated the bag and signed it into evidence to be destroyed. No charges. I see the guy around all the time now. Bringing weed to court is just so metal it would probably set off the metal detector anyways. Kinda late here so it probably won't be seen. My dad is a pretty hilarious cop. I've told a lot of his stories before. He gets a call one night late, like 11 PM or something, of kids vandalizing a park. It's some lady calling. One of those nosy call the cops for everything types. My dad gets there and rolls up all blacked out to an area where he can oversee the park. After watching for a couple of minutes he clearly sees that this big group of kids is just playing hide and seek. My dad seizes his opportunity. He gets out of his car, sneaks down to the park and sneaks up on 3 people hiding in this area. He gets up behind them where they're hiding and now they see him. One kid panics and starts to run. My dad grabs him by the shirt and whispers, "Dude, don't freaking run. They'll find us." He then proceeded to play hide and seek with them for the next hour or so and then took pictures with them after. Fast forward like a year, I'm having a Halloween costume kickback at my house and some friends are over. We were all in our early 20s at the time. I think I was 22 or so. Anyway, we're all dressed up hanging out and drinking. My dad is out on duty but texts that he's gonna stop by to pick up some food and say hi. He comes into the kitchen and one of my friends jumps up and goes, "Holy crap, your dad is SGT, insert dad's name." And my dad looks at him and was like, "Hey man, I haven't seen you guys playing hide and seek lately. What's up?" So this lady called the cops on a bunch of early 20s people playing hide and seek cause they were bored on a Saturday night. A group of kids play hide and seek at night. A cop sneaks up on one, grabs him, and says, "Don't freaking run." That's pretty terrifying. Until I read they were 20, I was a little worried. My grandfather was pulled over by the Bay Police for breaking the speed limit on a wave runner without a license. The cop said he had never seen anyone so old speeding before and let him go. I like his logic. We need to see weirder groups of people do illegal stuff, so at least there would be at least one record of it in history. Not a cop. A couple of friends and I were driving down the highway to a friend's house. We took 2 cars because of the amount of people. A girl in my car has the good idea to moon the other car of people. She rolls down the window and just sticks her whole bum out. We would later find out her vulva was in full view as well. This is going on for about a minute until we suddenly realize there is an officer right behind us. Tailgating. He has clearly seen what is going on, and everyone in the car is flipping out, until we realize he is laughing. Move the car over a lane and he jets right past us. TLDR. Cop laughs at mooning on the highway. Pretty hard for a chick to show her butt without showing her vag too, if it's a proper moon, anyway. About 1999 or so, we responded to a suicide attempt. When we arrived, the gentleman was laying on the floor amidst a cloud of dust and sheetrock with a noose around his neck. In his grief, he tethered it to a drop ceiling which could never hold his body weight. That's actually really sad. My good friend is a police officer in a really bad section of North Philly, and he and his partner once got called to a house by a man because the prostitute he hired bit him and then wouldn't leave. They ended up driving her home but didn't arrest either of them. That sounds like the start of a zombie movie. When I was about 17, some friends and I got involved in a scavenger hunt. It was a tie, so the tiebreaker was, bring back the coolest thing you can find. We didn't get anything special, but the other group, they went to a dollar store type place that had a coin operated horse in front of it. It was about 1 AM. No other cars in the lot besides an 86 Nova driven by my friend. They start to dismantle this horse, eventually getting it apart, put it in the back of the Nova with the head sticking out the window, and drive off. They get about 15 feet before the 2 cops that were watching them the entire time pull up. They ended up having to put this horse back together, then made everyone ride it to make sure it still worked. My good friend was scared and crying, riding a mechanical horse. After I heard the story, I knew the cops probably thought it was the funniest thing they had seen in a long time. I am working as a rent-a-thug while finishing off my degree, and have some pretty amusing stories. The best is from a grocery store in a bad part of town. So, picture a woman. A large woman. Nope. Larger. She's allergic to soap and showers too, apparently. Hair has probably never been washed. Enormous breasts. Enormous cleavage. It was stinky. I watched her grab a Kool-Aid packet, 69 cents, and stuff it into her bra. Then another. Then 2 more. I then watched her walk right out the front door. I gave the store manager $4 to cover the loss. Sometimes it's just not worth it. You overpaid. Fist time posting. I was a cop for about 7 years, and toward the last few years of that time, I found myself searching for more and more reasons not to take people to jail. I had drunks park their cars and give them rides. Teenagers smoking weed throw it out and be on their way, and realize that arresting people wasn't always the best solution to their mistake. Not everyone that can go to jail should to go to jail. One night I drove through a dark parking lot and noticed a lone vehicle parked in the back and a small light inside. I assumed it would be teenagers doing their thing, or someone smoking. I approached the car on foot and didn't use my flashlight until I was right up on the car. I turn on my light and see a guy naked, alone in the front seat of his car fapping. I tell him I'm the police and he rolls down the window. I ask what he is doing and he says, I'm jerking off. I shined my light in the back seat and saw he had a car full of groceries. Asked him about the groceries. He said, my wife gets pee when I jerk off at home, so I came out here to do it. Do you mind? Dumbfounded. I really don't know what to say, instead reminding him that I could arrest him for public indecency. He laughs and tells me to go ahead. Taking a step back, I thought about his situation. The dude just wanted to rub one out in peace. So I told him to hurry it up and be on his way. He thanked me and rolled up the window. Turning around, I yell back at him, why do you have to be completely naked? He responds, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna frickin' do it right. I laughed and walked away. I hope that man had a good fap. I love this story. Thanks for sharing and also for not reacting to the poor guy. Had to prosecute a case where two teens, boy and girl, stole a pregnancy test and a box of condoms from a drugstore. Recommended dismissing the case on some community service. Told the judge I was doing so because it was a case of the two youngsters trying to close the barn door after the horse had already left. Also recommended that the community service be done in a latex-free environment because the condoms were lambskin. Judge fought an amazing struggle not to laugh. He lost. I had a motorcycle accelerate past me right as I was about to get off the interstate. He downshifted and took off, clearly being an arrogant smartass. I merged back on and chased him even though I had no realistic chance of catching him. He continued to flee even after I initiated lights and sirens, and attempted to get off at the next exit to lose me. I lost sight of him as he hit the ramp because it went down to the road at an angle. As I got to the exit I had to slam on my brakes as he was laying in the middle of the road. He had lost it trying to make the turn onto the surface street. He got up as I got out of the car and had his helmet in his hand. I drew my weapon and ordered him to the ground, but he was too busy slamming his helmet on the pavement repeatedly yelling, "Stupid, stupid, stupid." I did take him to jail, but did not charge him for felony evading arrest. I figured his totaled bike and sky-high insurance premiums would probably prevent any future motorcycle-related shenanigans. Plus he was kind enough to let me catch him in the first place. This guy was really close to a Darwin Award. I'll tell my favorite story of a cop letting me go. I was driving late at night through a Texas highway with my girlfriend asleep in the passenger seat. It was 1 AM and I was tired, just trying to get home for the night. There was no one around for miles, so I was going close to 100 miles per hour. Well, a cop decided to pull me over for speeding and I had no idea what to do, so I jostled my girlfriend awake quickly to help me figure it out while I pulled over. She was in a deep sleep when I woke her up and started getting mad at me and crying for waking her up and I was such a bad boyfriend and yada yada yada. Well, just when she broke down and started bawling about how terrible I was, I rolled the window down to give the cop my license and I said in my best Texas accent, "I'm sorry officer, but it's late and if I don't get her home soon, her dad is gonna kill me." The cop looked at her crying and upset, and just gave me my license back and said, "You better get going, son, and let me leave." As a Texan, I buy it, especially in West or East Texas. Note, I do not work in the USA. I have no idea how such a matter would be dealt with in the States. I went to a call of a reported robbery. I get out of the car and talk to the chap who was standing at the side of the road. He starts talking 19 to the dozen about how two fellows robbed him. I start taking a description, establishing a direction of travel, etc. This chap is a fairly regular customer, public order, petty theft, etc. In gardening terms a hardy perennial, but it doesn't mean that he can't be a victim of crime. The story is as follows. My friend came into some money. He wouldn't tell me how he came by the money, but I have a pretty good idea. He smoked some weed with some chaps that he met on the street. It was good weed and they told him they could get him some more, as well as H and methadone, which was what he was really looking for. He then produces the remainder of the weed in a bag. I take the weed off him and look at it. This weed here. Yeah, officer, it's great stuff. They said they could sell me some more and some H. Okay, what happened then? Well, we came up here. Points to a nearby block of flats. I gave the money for the weed and the H and they went off to get it. That was nearly an hour ago. Officer, I don't think they're coming back. Right. Do you have any idea where they went? Not really, but it's not right. I dealt in good faith. Shocking. I put the weed down the drain where we were standing, commiserated with my friend on the fallen nature of man and then sent him on his way. It seems you can't trust anybody these days. I am going to use so many of those sayings you just introduced me to. So many. Not a cop, but I was at an open-air public dance where I came into contact with 3 teenagers who appeared to be very high on something. Later, when I was going home on the subway, I saw that the transit police had stopped the teens. Our subway runs on an honor system, so I thought that they had been caught for non-payment. I offered to pay their fares, but the police told me they had been caught drinking alcohol in the station. At that point, one of the teens started crying and having a severe panic attack. The 2 cops looked at each other with a look that said, "Do we want to deal with this?" They found out where the kids were going and where I was going. Our routes matched, so they asked me to chaperone the kids till the point where they got off the transit system. I had a case where a guy was charged with DV assault. A kid had shown up late for school and the resource officer asked him why. The kid said he hadn't wanted to go and that his dad had dragged him out of bed, pushed him out the door and thrown his backpack at him. The SRO then went to the kid's house and asked the dad what happened. The dad was like, "Yep, I dragged him out of bed, down the stairs, pushed him out the door and locked it. I told him he couldn't come back in until after 4 o'clock. The SRO sent it in for charging and in the decline I wrote, "We don't charge people with crimes for being good parents." If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.